Page 419, at the bottom. I peeked out, expecting to see Sekhmet walk through the flames of the warehouse. Instead, she leaped out in the form of a giant lion. Her eyes blazed, and floated over her head was a disk of fire like a miniature sun. "The symbol of Ra," Zia whispered. Sekhmet roared, "Where are you, my tasty morsels?" She opened her maw and breathed a blast of hot air across the parking lot. Wherever her breath touched, the asphalt melted. Cars disintegrated into sand, and the parking lot turned into a barren desert. "How did she do that?" Sadie hissed. "Her breath creates the deserts," Zia said. "That is the legend." Better and better. Fear was closing at my throat, but I knew we couldn't hide much longer. I summoned my sword. "I'll distract her. You two run—" "No," Zia insisted. "There is another way." She pointed me at a row of silos on the other side of the lot. Each one was 3 stories tall and maybe 20 feet in diameter, with a giant chili pepper painted on the side. "Petrol tanks?" Sadie asked. "No," I said. "Must be salsa, right?" Sadie stared at me blankly. "Isn't that a type of music?" "It's a hot sauce," I said. "That's what they make here." Sekhmet breathed in our direction, and the 3 trailers next to us melted into sand. We scuttled sideways and jumped behind a cinder block wall. "Listen," Zia gasped, her face beading with sweat. "When the people needed to stop Sekhmet, they got huge vats of beer and colored them bright red with pomegranate juice." "Yeah, I remember now," I interrupted. "They told Sekhmet it was blood, and she drank it until she passed out. Then Ra was able to recall her into the heavens. They transformed her into something gentler, a cow goddess or something." "Hathor," Zia said. "That is Sekhmet's other form, the flip side of her personality." Sadie shook her head in disbelief. "So you're saying we offered to buy Sekhmet a few pints and she'll turn into a cow?" "Not exactly," Zia said. "But salsa is red, is it not?" We skirted the factory grounds as Sekhmet chewed up trucks and blasted huge swaths of the parking lot to sand. "I hate this plan," Sadie grumbled. "Just keep her occupied for a few seconds," I said, "and don't die." "Yeah, that's the hard part, isn't it?" 1, I counted. 2, 3. Sadie burst into the open and used her favorite spell. "Hadi!" The glyphs blazed over Sekhmet's head, and everything around her exploded. Trucks burst to pieces. The air shimmered with energy. The ground heaved upward, creating a crater 50 feet deep into which the lioness tumbled. It was pretty impressive, but I didn't have time to admire Sadie's work. I turned into a falcon and launched myself toward the salsa tanks. "Roar!" Sekhmet leaped out of the crater and breathed desert wind in Sadie's direction. But Sadie was long gone. She ran sideways, ducking behind trailers and releasing a few lengths of magical rope as she fled. The ropes whipped through the air and tried to tie themselves around the lioness's mouth. They failed, of course, but they did annoy the destroyer. "Show yourself," Sekhmet bellowed. "I will feast on your flesh." Perched on a silo, I concentrated all my power and turned straight from falcon to avatar. My glowing form was so heavy, its feet sank into the top of the tank. "Sekhmet!" I yelled. The lioness whirled and snarled, trying to locate my voice. "Up here, kitty!" I called. She spotted me and her ears went back. "Horus? Unless you know another guy with a falcon head." She patted back and forth uncertainly, then roared in challenge. "Why do you speak to me when I am in my raging form? You know I must destroy everything in my path, even you." "If you must," I said, "but first you might like to feast on the blood of your enemies." I drove my sword into the tank and salsa gushed out in a chunky red waterfall. I leaped to the next tank and sliced it open, and again until 6 silo-fulls of magic salsa were spewing onto the parking lot. Ha ha! Sekhmet loved it. She leaped into the red sauce torrent, rolling in it, lapping it up. Blood, lovely blood. Yeah, apparently lions aren't too bright, or their taste buds aren't very developed, because Sekhmet didn't stop until her belly was bulging and her mouth literally began to smoke. Tangy, she said, stumbling and blinking. But my eyes hurt. What kind of blood is this? Nubian? Persian? Jalapeno, I said. Try some more. It gets better. Her ears were smoking too now as she tried to drink more. Her eyes watered and she began to stagger. Steam curled from her mouth. Hot mouth. Milk is good for that, I suggested. Maybe if you were a cow. Trick, Sekhmet groaned. You tricked. But her eyes were too heavy. She turned in a circle and collapsed, curling into a ball. Her form twitched and shimmered as her red armor melted into spots on her golden skin, until I was looking down at an enormous, sleeping cow. I dropped off the silo and stepped carefully around the sleeping goddess. She was making cow snoring sounds like moose, moose. I waved my hand in front of her face, and when I was convinced she was out cold, I dispelled my avatar. Sadie and Zia emerged from behind a trailer. Well, said Sadie, that was different. I will never eat salsa again, I decided. You both did wonderfully, Zia said, but your boat is burned. How do we get to Phoenix? We, Sadie said. I don't recall inviting you. Zia's face turned salsa red. Surely you don't still think I led you into a trap? I don't know, Sadie said. Did you? I couldn't believe I was hearing this. Sadie, my voice sounded dangerously angry, even to myself. Lay off. Zia summoned that pillar of fire thing. She sacrificed her magic to save us. And she told us how to beat the lioness. We need her. Sadie stared at me. She glanced back and forth between Zia and me, probably trying to judge how far she could push things. Fine. She crossed her arms and pouted. But we need to find Amos first. No, Zia said. That would be a very bad idea. Oh, so we can trust you, but not Amos? Zia hesitated. I got the feeling that was exactly what she meant, but she decided to try a different approach. Amos would not want you to wait. He said to keep going, didn't he? If he survives Sekhmet, he will find us on the road. If not, Sadie huffed. So how do we get to Phoenix? Walk? I gazed across the parking lot where one 16-wheeler was still intact. Maybe we don't have to. I took off the linen coat I'd borrowed from Amos's supply locker. Zia, Amos has a way of animating his coat so it could steer his boat. Do you know the spell? She nodded. It's fairly simple with the right ingredients. I could do it if I had my magic. Can you teach me? She pursed her lips. The hardest part is the figurine. The first time you enchant the piece of clothing, you need to smash a shabti into the fabric and speak a binding charm to meld them together. It would require a clay or wax figure that has already been imbued with the spirit. Sadie and I looked at each other and simultaneously said, Doughboy.